Salaki, y'all. Alright, much better. Alrighty, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. I also want to give double honors to our apostles and bishops and elders of Great Millstone that do rule well through the Holy Spirit. And I want to say peace, blessings, and salutations, of course, as always, that are unto you elect, who are scattered throughout the four winds of this earth, fulfilling your lots in all truth and all sincerity. I am the brother Sha'ar from the Great Millstone Dallas branch, and I'm coming to you all with another lesson, which is inspired by the Holy Spirit. Lord willing, this lesson here will be edifying unto the flock. And as you all see the title, I mean, it's not a surprise to none of us. We already know what Esau plans on doing, and that's pretty much to categorize all of us. And as he categorizes all of us, he's going to want to put the believers of Yahweh Shai within that number. All right. But nevertheless, as you see the title, it talks about hate. So it says hate speech is being monitored. All right. And pretty much, within the past few days, there's a lot that's been taking place within this whole CK. If you get the abbreviation, all right, Charlie Blank, and what took place to him last Wednesday. All right, and how he was assassinated. And you have a lot of people, all right, especially Jake out of people, whether it's Jake or, the whole left-wing alphabet committee, a lot of them have been on social media, whether it's Instagram, whatever social media platform that they're on, and they've been speaking illy on the death of Calvin Klein, CK. All right, if you get it, you get it. And now you have these people that have been speaking hatefully about this individual, all right, which homeboy was definitely, an Edomite racist, which, it is what it is. We obviously understand. We don't look at him as a bad guy because of his disdain that he had toward Jake. More so, we understand the disdain that he has toward Jake. We understand that based on the scriptures. So us believers aren't bent out of shape, and we're never bent out of shape for Edomites that come in that spirit. All right, because we know that we're in America, and America was rooted within that same spirit that Charlie Kirk had. All right, that spirit that Donald Trump in and making America great again. This was a spirit that's been in America since its upbringing, since its nativity. And as they've been on their whole grand tour of MAGA, making America great again, they've been going back into that Edomite hatred toward Jake's spirit. All right. And with this whole assassination that took place, again, as I stated earlier, you have a lot of people that have spoken illy and celebrated the death of CK. All right. And that's the thing about it with us being believers. Our Elder Ariala did a quick, made mention of that in a quick lesson when it came out, to really be mindful and salty about bringing that guy up. Okay. Because we definitely know that they're cracking down on hate speech. And we already, as we preach this gospel, and this message is already centered around the fall of Babylon. All right. Part of this gospel is centered around the fall of Babylon. You can read that in Isaiah, the 61st chapter. It talks about the good tidings that we teach is teaching the acceptable year and the day of vengeance. All right. So we already are a target. We're already blacklisted. All right. To these different Edomites that have been spotting us, watching us, and everything. So obviously we know that eventually Jacob's trouble is getting ready to come. They're going to come against those that actually preach the gospel, because again, this gospel that we preach is centered around the downfall of Babylon. But in the midst of that, you don't want to go overboard. And when I say go overboard, as the scriptures do say, all right, a prudent man seeth the evils to come and hides himself. All right, so as we use YouTube as a platform to preach this gospel, and again, we know what it's centered around, all right, you still got to use wisdom and use salt as you're here, okay? Especially when you're out there in the workplace. Hey, the book of Ephesians, the 5th chapter, talks about that. When you read it in Ephesians, the 5th chapter and the 15th verse, when it tells you to walk circumspectly, not as fools, but wise, redeeming the times, because the days are evil. All right, so understanding this, just got to move with salt. All right, the scriptures even says that in Colossians. I believe it's in Colossians, the 2nd chapter, it says to let your speech be seasoned with salt. All right. And again, that's just ultimately going into being mindful about how we do speak and the things that are said, especially since we know that this message that we do speak, all right, labels us as, we know. Again, I'm just trying to use salt in the wording of this. Okay. But, ultimately just wanted to kind of talk about this because, again, you do see Esau cracking down. You see a lot of Jake losing their jobs right now. And I'm not even just Jake. All right. But those are the LGBTQ community. Those are the left. All right. And when I say Jake, I'm talking about that category. All right. A lot of it's black women that are losing their jobs. There was a video that I seen earlier today. It was on Anton Daniels' page. He was pretty much just going into a quick video, a quick review of this black woman talking about how she lost her job. In the midst of that, she's kind of tearing up and crying and everything. And Anton Daniels is pretty much saying, this dude is wicked, but a broken way, as they say. Made your bed, now you got to lay in that motherfucker. And you got a lot of people that are on watch, that are on alert right now, especially when it comes to the fall of CK. All right, and you got Edomites that are trying to find a reason, any old little reason. We know the spirit Esau's in right now, as I said a little minute ago. I'm pretty sure most of y'all that are watching this video saw some of those clips of those Edomites saying white men fight back. They're saying white men fight back, and they're chanting white man fight back, white man fight back. Even though it was an Edomite that actually assassinated CK, pretty much from what they're saying, which I believe it was an inside job. I believe the Edomite that they caught is just the face that they're putting out there, because you got to be a beast to shoot somebody from that far away right there in that spot in their carotid artery. But nevertheless, you got Edomites that are chanting white man fight back, and that's directed toward Jake. And again, even though it's an Edomite, as they're saying, that shot him, but these Edomites are chanting white man fight back toward the energy that Jake is displaying based on Charlie Kirk getting put to death, or CK. I said his name, but that, that's the truth. He was assassinated. Not speaking ill on the man, he was assassinated, but you got Edomites that are in that rah-rah spirit ready for Jake. There's some documents, or not documents, but documents. But there's some accounts, I'd rather say, not documents, but accounts of Jakes that are being found hung. Some of y'all saw that. I believe there was one Jake that was found hung in Mississippi. All right, I believe there was another Jake that was found hung in Cleveland. I think it was like Cleveland, Missouri. Something along those lines, But nevertheless, you have a lot of Edomites that are very upset and very mad. And again, we understand, according to prophecy, they're going to be like that, But as we preach this gospel, as we teach this message, we don't want to put unnecessary attention on this. Attention that doesn't have to be there. You don't got to be out there celebrating, the death of CK. All right, you don't got to be out there celebrating it. At the end of the day, you walk with salt and understanding on why it took place and why it happened. More so, we're out on the highways and the hedges as well. As the scriptures say, when you read it in Psalm 34, how the angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him. So we have a cloud of witnesses, as you read it in the Hebrews 12th chapter, that are surrounded by us and that are protecting us. But when you start moving without salt, and you start tempting the Lord, then that cloud of witnesses, or those angels that are encamped around us, they can allow certain shit to happen to us. Just because Jake ain't moving with seasoning. All right? And you look at a lot of these other guys that are out here, a lot of these groups, you see they're moving with fear. And they're completely changing their whole doctrine up just to appease to the heathen and Esau Edom. So you see who sold out. All right? So again, in this lesson, I'm not telling you to be like those guys. Obviously, y'all get that. Y'all know I ain't saying that. But I'm saying move with salt. You can move with salt and not be a coward at the same time. All right? And when I say not be a coward, I'm talking about these other groups that are out here pretty much changing their whole doctrine around, talking about how the heathen can make it and pretty much giving grace to the Edomites. They're changing everything up the more extreme things get, But I know I was kind of all over the place, or maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But really, this lesson was spur of the moment as I was in the car. It was really halfway as I was already through my, through my trip going home from work. And the spirit just kind of had me just put this on wax. to be mindful, because we are being monitored right now more than we think. We know we're being monitored, but we are being monitored more than we think. Okay? I remember some years ago, this was probably close to about 8-9 years ago, and we was out there in the camp preaching, and there was some Edomites that pulled up, and they were actually FBI agents. Some of you brothers that are in our camp probably remember, brothers that have been around that long. And I remember I was a very young man at this time in the truth. So that was a reality check for me. It's like, yo, they're watching more than we think. And that was 9 years ago, before things were as critical as they are right now. Things are a lot more critical now than they ever have been. Okay? Things are a lot more heightened right now than they have ever been. Even as I was walking out of the door, leaving for work, I was just talking to my co-worker, just going into how much of a hectic day it was at work. And I was like, man, the devil's a lie. I said it as a joke, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, man. But he was like, yeah, man, these days are getting dark. And he started talking about just how dark things are getting in general. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, this motherfucker paying attention, man. He see what's going on. So it's clear and it's evident that things are a lot more dark than they've ever been. It's evident. So with us having understanding, being men of understanding, we got to continue to move with salt and wisdom. All right. And part of that is, again, just as 2020, when Code C-19 came out, as we were wording certain things a certain type of way, when the Maxine Waters came out, we worded that a certain type of way. Hell, it's going to have to even come to the point when it comes to CK, the guy that just got assassinated last week. Because again, these people are watching like crazy, and they're trying to find the reason. They're trying to find something. All right, so we got to move with more wisdom now than ever before. Ever before. Even on certain things that you think might not be a big deal, and you just overlook it and fan your hand, even stuff like that, you got to be considerate about it. Got to consider all things right now. Always had to consider things, but now any little mistake could be your last mistake. Any little mistake that can be made can alter the truth. When I say the truth, I'm not alter the truth, but I'd rather say the Akim. And again, that's the last thing that we want to do is pretty much, how's it worded? All right, cause the ministry to be blamed. Okay? So, that's pretty much what this message was about, just moving with salt, moving with seasoning, moving with prudence more, especially since we see how evil the days are, and understanding that we are being monitored right now. We are being monitored on a whole nother level, So having understanding on that, just got to just move a little more sharp. But that was pretty much the point. I didn't want to expound on this too much longer. I believe the point was pretty much made. All right. Hopefully y'all were edified. But I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to our apostles and bishops and elders of Great Millstone that do rule well through the Holy Spirit. And peace and blessing and salutations that are unto you elect, who are scattered throughout the four winds of this earth, fulfilling your lots and your portions in all truth and all sincerity. Shalom.